Alright, so I wanted to make a follow-up video to the video where I talked about what you should keep and what you should get rid of, to talk about what's generally speaking going to be your best in slot for perks for PvE and PvP. PvE right now is incredibly simple. You need to just craft gear where you force enchanted ward mods into T1 gear. I'm not sure why that's a thing, but that's a thing. From there, you need to roll a defensive slot, and then from there you slot enchanted ward 2. With this, effectively, if you do it right, you should be able to get 5 gem slots on your gear. You should be able to get Enchanted Ward 1, and you should be able to get Enchanted Ward Gear 2 on basically every piece of gear. So Enchanted Ward 2, the value is 2%. You can get 5 of those, because there is a stack max of 5. So that's 10% like reduction to all attacks in PvE. And Enchanted Ward 1, right now, for some reason, it's more valuable than Enchanted Ward 2. It's at 3.5%. And you could technically get 6 of these, but the 6 cases if you have one on a shield from a T1 shield, which is like probably not as common, so let's just put 5 in here. So you effectively end up with like, what, 27.5% damage mitigation to everything incoming to you in PvE. So that's just like all I'd look at for in terms of best in slot, and I really wouldn't worry about it from there. There's technically better stuff you can get at the end. Like you can get additional conditioning towards bosses that you're if you're consistently taking damage from them, if you're not consistently taking damage from them, because remember, conditioning will only work if it's like you're consistently taking damage from a boss. Then I would look for like offensive perks like Keenly Empowered, Keenly Jagged. Uh, if you're not hitting the Empower cap, try to have other perks that boost you towards your Empower cap, or just kind of whatever perks like fit your build in general. But it's not as specific as like these. Like so, this is like your PVE BIS. There is like one other effect that is probably worth getting for PvE as well that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. And it's from this set that's pretty easy to get from the Catacombs. All you have to do is, I think we did a bunch of Catacombs on stream today, and we typically got around 4 of this currency. You needed 10 of it. It's like the gold currency. And then from there, you can choose a piece that is loot biased and that comes in a box that you can open. So if you want it in light, you need to have a light chest piece equipped and buy the elementally charged chest piece. You will get the elemental hunger perk on this chest piece. This is one of the best perks in the game. Uh, it says while you have no elemental charges, you take 5% less elemental damage. I think everybody assumed this would be base damage. Turns out this is ABS. So, yeah, this is like the same thing as gems. So I would effectively look at this perk as, hey, this is worth about 2.5 slots on a normal piece, but it's taking up 1 slot. So that inherently makes it super, 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 super strong and very, very good for PvE. So I would just recommend taking that as well, or just taking a look and seeing if that is worth it for you. I think it's technically best to get the like RNG uh, and fixed a role from open world somewhere. But how this works is, uh, while you have no charges, you take 5% less elemental damage. So if we just have this and we don't actually have the elementally charged set, we never obtain a charge. So we just always take 5% less elemental damage. So it's like a really easy way to consistently get damage reduction. It feels like it's a little bit cheesy, and it probably shouldn't be a thing, but it feels a little bit cleaner than the whole enchanted ward situation right now for PvE. So in terms of PvE, that's what I would mostly look for. On jewelry, it gets a little bit funkier. So if we look at uh like I think earring is probably the one that is the most interesting from a PvE standpoint. The thing that you can get on here that is kind of weird is you can get beloved and despised on the same piece. And by doing this, you get considerably more, like you get like what, a 12% damage boost. So it's just like generally worth doing. Don't worry about having despise even if you have a tank in your party, because your tank should be running a taunt gem on their weapon, which will increase the threat even more, and they should be running despised on their weapon as well, or I think it's called hated on the weapon. Because despise doesn't actually have, or they're different effects, but they don't have like overlapping status effect, so you can just get more damage through despise, you get more damage through beloved, and you get more damage through hated. So it's just like all those kind of add up, and it makes it so that in PvE you can just basically get free damage just by running those perks. I don't want to troll all the PvEers, but it should be possible for everybody to run hated on their weapon as well, as long as the tank has despised, beloved, hated, and has a carnelian slotted. Um, but I feel like there's a good chance that will somehow like break the game in terms of like pulling aggro because everything is pulling aggro all the time, and I don't know how those limits exactly work. But the tank would still have the most aggro in that case, so that's something that's kind of worth exploring as well. But in any case, Despised and Beloved are your best friends for PvE. You could technically get 4 locked perks on a single piece of jewelry. It tends to be best to get this jewelry from chest runs, from my experience. And so your last slots here, I'd say Fortifying Toast is really good. Healing Heart is probably not as good in PvE as it is in PvP, but it's still very, very good. Refreshing Recovery is probably the main one that you're looking for. And then from there, it's just whatever you get is nice. You generally want a gem slot, uh, and then the last slot's a little bit flexible. I still think defensive pieces are just better than offensive pieces. Like Keenly Empowered is very good, but it's like there's such a limited amount of like good uh gear, I guess, that like has the offensive perks. Like if you type in 2 in New World Buddy for the name, you can see all like the new perks roughly once you get past this first section. And like if you just go down, like the skill charms are the skill charms, but if you look at like all the offense charms, like this is kind of the problem with the end game right now too, is like one of the reasons why all the fixed perks are better, why no one like really wants these defensive charms and the offensive charms, but they're all kind of like mid. Like for in PvE, you're already hitting the empower cap, so you don't really care about these because these just give you more empower. Uh, Enchanted's like it's nice because it's like it is a base damage increase, so that's like actually a nice one for PvE. Vicious is a nice one for PvE. I guess Rogue technically is a nice one for PvE too, so maybe these are a little better for PvE than they are for PvP. But it's like the power level per mod, I feel like is a little bit more favored towards the defensive side to the point where I imagine people are gonna try to slot enough defense to where they could run 5 con, and then from there, you start looking to add offensive perks. But it's like your offensive perks aren't your priority in PvE. They're like their fill. The only two that I think are stand out amongst the rest are Keenly Jagged and Keenly Empowered. These are like legitimately good mods, but you can only run 2 of them, and you probably don't want to run them on weapons because you want them to be active on both your weapons per slot. Like if you run a Keenly Jagged on weapon 1, like the question is, does it carry over to weapon 2? It's like I don't think it works that way. And because I don't think it works that way, if you run Keenly Jagged on armor, it's effectively like you're slotting 2 perk slots instead of anything with Keenly Empowered, which makes it so that offense slots on weapons are kind of sketchy, which is then why you see like a lot of people trying to get like triple attunement, gem slot, uh, and then like a skill charm as their last slot for PvE and PvP bis, because it just gets really, really weird. But like no one really wants these offensive slots because they're just like there's a few that are really good and the rest are like they're decent, but they're not that great. Like PvP, the main one that stands out is like pen backstab, but everything else is like, do I want it? It's like, it's okay. But like no one like really wants it unless they're like super, super light, like not very tanky, kind of nuker oriented classes. But that's probably enough for PvE. We could spend a little bit of time talking about PvP BIS as well. PvP BIS is highly focused again on like not really these mods, but heavily on terms of the forced ones. So one that is probably worth looking at if we scroll over here and I just look at like I don't know like chess piece or something like that. Uh, there's a few mods that are like noteworthy, like Vital Synergy is like one that's not as common that is like you generally would want on a chest. Um, okay, this doesn't filter out for all the other pieces, actually just filters out for ones that are only good on a chest. So let's get rid of that for a second and go back to our filters because I just want to look at the new perks. So, okay, so these are the new perks. We can go down to the bottom and see all the locked ones. So the ones that like really stand out for me that you want, there's typically 2 to 3 lock slots. I think the best one overall is Shirking Fortification. Let's see if I could find it here. I could search for it. So Shirking Fortification is set at 9% Fortify, and it lasts for 6 seconds. There was a Shirking Fortification meta in PvP. This at the time, this was like probably 5 or 6% for 6 seconds. And at the time, people were debating between it and Elemental Aversion, which is set at 4.5%. And people were debating between it and like Enchanted Ward. Enchanted Ward was at 4%. And people were debating between it and Grit Ward, and Grit Ward was 3%. All 3 of those other perks that were competitive with Shirking Fort got nerfed. Shirking Fort got buffed. So Shirking Fort by default is just meta for PvP. There's not really much of a decision there. It's just the best piece. there is like PvP oriented gear that actually has access to the shirking fort. So if you look at like new gear that got added to the game, this gear is actually like surprisingly very good, especially like the chest piece, but they're all very good. So sacrificial empowerment I think is overall not the best fixed perk slot, but it's still not a bad one because the armor decrease is only active while you're below 50% HP versus the base damage bonus is active all the time. So it's actually not that bad. Vital Synergy is a very good perk. Shrinking Forward is a mandatory perk. Gem slot is necessary in terms of resistances, and last slot is a defense slot. So you could put Enchanted Ward on there. You could put Elemental Aversion if you want to. You could put Grit Ward on there. So you have like a lot of flexibility with this gear. This is the gear set I would just generally recommend people going for if they don't have a lot of time with the game and they just want to, have good PvP gear. Like this is like probably 70-80% of a good PvP set, and you don't need to go much more. But in terms of like getting something that is like completely best in slot, I would argue you want Shirking Fort, and you want some other really good defensive mods. So one that I really like personally is Prolonged Favor because it makes all your fortifies last longer, it makes all your conditionings last longer, it makes every buff in the game that's on top of you last longer, including a few healing related ones. Like Healing Breeze is considered to be a buff. So that one feels really, really good to me. It is locked though. You can't like this again doesn't have a craft mod, so you can't put it in a defensive slot, which is why people are generally speaking looking to farm open world for drops. Why people are looking at Spooter Caves and new Spooter Caves, which there's a couple new ones, which I could probably get into a different video because this one's already getting kind of long. But that's one of the gear problems of the game currently is people are not really looking for these charm slots as much because it's the gear that drops with the generated perks just tends to be a bit better overall than the actual charms you get slot. That being said, the defensive charms are a little bit more competitive than the offensive ones. It's just the one that's like the elephant in the room is Shirking Fort. So like PvP for any medium or heavy class, I would heavily recommend slash basically as mandatory that you have a gem slot and you have Shirking Fortification. For light players, Shirking Fortification isn't as good. If you're in featherweight, I would still consider Shirking Fortification to be best in slot. With that exception aside, for light players, if you're actually playing light, you generally are a little bit insane usually if you're not a healer slash like you're looking like you're on a class that's like probably going to get one shot, but you're also going to like do a lot of damage to other people. I would basically go the polar opposite route and I would just focus on offense mods and trying to max out your offensive gear, which is a little bit weird. But I just think that generally works out better. So if you're a fire staff, you're looking for fire harnessing just to consistently have that damage. If you're a blunderbuss, you're looking for thrust harnessing and probably fire harnessing too, because you use both of those. You are looking like if taking a blunderbuss again for an example, you're looking for enchanted. If you're a fire staff, you're probably looking for skilled enchantment. If you're a fire staff, you like to crit. You like to crit damage. You're looking for vicious. If you like to crit, keen is not a bad perk either. If you're a melee oriented assassin, you're probably looking for pen backstep. So you just kind of go down the lines for that for those light players, where you're basically just looking to do as much DPS as possible, and you're probably going to die, but you're just trying to trade positively, and that's just generally been the goal of light. Uh, you can run some defensive perks. It's just I don't think they help you enough per perk to where they're going to save you from the fact that you're playing light. So I would abuse other things like your movement, and I would abuse like range if you're a range person. Just kind of keep yourself away from combat so that you live a little bit better. For healers you want Sacred. Noteworthy Sacred only has a perks max of 5. It doesn't say that in the tooltip, so you can't slot more than 5 of those. And otherwise, you basically just want to load up on defensive mods. For for my tanks that don't like to dodge, so that you're not going to use Shirking Fort, just look for a bunch of defensive slots. Just do Enchanted Ward, Elemental Aversion, get Grit Ward, Enchanted Ward, yada yada, like all those like cheesy perks for, then stack those and you'll just be really tanky. So it's like you want to like choose perks that like fit your style. If you're an offensive thing, go towards the offense more. If you're a defensive thing, go toward the defense more. The part where I think people can mess up is if you're like, I'm playing light and I feel really squishy, so I'm gonna slot all these defensive perks, and it's like, why are you playing light? It's like if you're gonna play light like you're gonna actually play light and like play to like actually like kill people. If you're having a hard time such you don't like to kill people, just go to medium and start playing like a brawler kind of role. And if you don't like to brawl, then go to heavy and just be like a pseudo tank. The other thing I wanted to bring up too, with this This video is already kind of going long, but the other thing that kind of breaks the game in terms of gearing right now is if you look at uh, like flame protection or something like some of these kinds of protections, or all these protections actually. So these are equipable on Tower Shield and Amulet. The thing that changed is these are on equip. If I look at Flame Shield Ward from the past, or is it Fire Shield Ward? I don't think they're really consistent with the names, but it's something Shield Ward. Shield. But if you, I'll find the thing in the meantime. But if you look at the perk from the past, uh, is it protection? Yeah, it's protection. If you look at the perk from the past, these, or no, protection was the old one. It was shield, right? I think I'm going insane. But the perk on the past didn't have this on equip. It had like on active. And the difference with an on equip versus on active basically means while your weapon is out, this is active. So because these have an on equip, if you have a secondary that has a shield equipped, so like a sword and shield or a flail, those are the only two combinations, has a shield equipped, these protections will still be active while your other weapon is out. So if you're a heavy class, there's not really a downside for doing this because you can get the protections on a kite shield or on a tower shield, and there's like no difference because you're already in heavy. But if you're a medium or light, you probably can't take advantage of this. But it's like an extreme buff for all heavy classes because you basically can just slot another 3 to 4 protections because you can get up to 4 protections on one piece, and then have your other weapon out, and you're like way more tankier on that weapon. So the thing that like kind of breaks the game from that is, say I want to like actually do DPS. Your best way to do DPS right now in the current patch might not be to go light, but it might be to go heavy. Use an SNS, put on a tower shield with a bunch of protections, and then just use all offensive perks. So you're going to be tankier than you'd be in light by a long shot. And you can take advantage of all the offensive perks you want at on the downside of being at a minus 30% base damage increase. So I'll let you guys think of all of that ramifications of that. The fix for this needs to not be on equip, it needs to be an on active. But then I don't know how that exactly works with jewelry and how jewelry works with the on active effect, but they need to figure out a way to make it so that while you have your shield out, it's not benefiting your other offhand because that's just effectively gonna break the game. Like it could be a really tanky blunderbuss, for example. It could be a really tanky greatsword that's an onslaught stance. Like it's just like those things like should not be possible, but they are possible with this sort of interaction. And with that being said, kind of a longer video, but I will see you guys in the next one.